What I'm going to go through today is I want to go through a specific example here. This is Dom. I want to go through this example, and as I go through, I want to talk through my thought process that I'm thinking as I'm going through an athlete that progressed very quickly after a labrum surgery. So Dom, let me pull up my notes here. Dom, he had his surgery 4/19 of 24, and later on you can see at the bottom here his first day of throwing was 7/31. So that's roughly 3.5 months. And so what I want to do is provide some backdrop on my thought process that I'm thinking as I go through an athlete that progresses very quickly or more quickly than someone may recommend. Like, I mean, he was fully cleared by his doctor and everything by that date. So like there's agreement there, right? But I want to walk through my thought process of that. So just so that you guys can see, it's not just like this crazy thing that we're trying to do. There's actually, we're simply listening to the body, and there's a reason why we're doing it, right? So this is from 10 days after his surgery, and just to look at some of the movement that he has. So he's going across body here, and this was essentially like pull into the ranges that we had at the shoulder for a couple seconds and then go back. So that was across body outside. This is internal rotation here. He's going to go into that was external rotation. This is internal rotation here. No, that's external, that one was internal. But we can see the range that he has there. This is going back into extension behind his body, showing us the range that he has there. This is the first session that we did. That's him going up overhead into flexion, feeling that up. So what I'm thinking as I go through and program this as his first day is I simply want to see how it's moving, right? So I don't want to just like throw him into things that he's not ready for. I'll play it again as I'm talking. I want to get a good idea of where is your body at right now. We're 10 days post. Where's your body at? And that helps to give me a visual. I'm like, okay, this is what his body is presenting as ready. Because I'm not looking at a paper and thinking like, okay, 10 days post, he's at the exact same spot as, a 52-year-old construction worker might be at this time. And that doesn't mean that construction worker will be ahead or behind. It just means like, I'm not thinking he's at the same spot. I actually want to see what his body is presenting, because after he's had that surgery, he is connected to that body. Like, that body is connected to him. He's getting feedback from it. He's feeling sensation from it. And that is going to show us where his body is at versus this piece of paper that's in front of me. So my thought process giving him this is I want to see how all these ranges are showing up. I want to see how confident he is in moving. I want to hear his feedback on that as well. And so this is just a little bit of feedback that I dropped there on the first day. Just thank you for the video. Seeing the range helps. Open up. Keep moving slow with it. As the confidence trust creeps up, we go with more aggressiveness. So just making sure to highlight, like, we're not trying to push into anything too quickly. We simply want to go slow with it, because the goal is like the first couple days. Like, let's say you just had shoulder surgery and we're going to do the overhead range of motion here. The goal isn't until like the first day that we do something, trying to like yank yourself into more range than you have. It's moving a range that you feel really damn good with, get extremely comfortable with there over the first 2 or 3 days that we're doing it, and then you're not going to have to force yourself to open up more range. It's just going to open up because your body understands. If your body's ready for it, right, your body's going to understand that it can open up because we're asking it the question. So I like to make sure that I make that very clear. Next part that I wanted to talk about is this was, I think this was the day, yeah, this was day 2. Whoops. This picture here is day 2, and I just had the, what I wrote out in trick coach, and the part that I wanted to highlight is the top part. So we did lower body joint moves for a session 1, and we did 1 set till fail for each move. So this is 11 days post-op. First day we did a lot of upper half stuff. Second session here we were doing some upper half stuff, but I want to make sure in the first session he's doing set still fail for every single lower body joint move. And the reason behind that is we want to ask his body to still be stimulated at a very high level, even though he's very early out of surgery. If we're doing our upper half stuff, as you saw with the videos back here, right, it's not like we're going crazy in terms of his ability to just like purely output like intent, or to purely engage in what he's doing. Like, he's fully engaged in what he's doing and feeling it, but the actual intensity isn't very high because it's limiting. So what we want to do, or because he's limited there due to the surgery. So what we want to do here is still get that very high level of stimulus into his system, so we're asking his body to use everything that it has, and that's going to then help things up the chain. So it's like that versus you're just like sitting there not doing anything, feeling tired, feeling dead for however amount of time, because like no one is letting you push. The lower body joint moves are something that are very similar or very simple, where we can like take you to fail on those, and there's going to be absolutely zero negative side effects up the chain, right? Because they're so simple, and I mean, it's pretty hard to mess up, like just moving your ankle up and down. So I like to do those early on, just an example of that. And then next video we have is 5-6. So this is 1 week after we started. And these are they're not impulses, they're overcoming iso and impulse position. So he's getting into the position that is impulse, and then he's doing a short couple second overcoming iso into the rope in those positions. So even if we go back there, we can highlight like his overhead range. If you remember back from that first video where his overhead range was, it was, I don't know, roughly maybe like right there. Here he's got like that full overhead range. It looks like he's got the elbow pretty straight. And so that's opening up fairly quickly for him. This is, again, 1 week after those initial videos. And again, as I'm programming this and as I'm seeing it, I'm just taking the information, okay, this is what his body is presenting as being ready for, which then gives me information on what we can go into, because I'm not looking at that sheet of paper thinking like this is the timeline that we're going to be on. I'm looking at him and getting information from him to then tell me what the timeline that we're going to be on is like. So that was a week after. This is then 4 days after that, so this is on 5/10, which would be roughly, it would be about 3 weeks. 3 weeks after his surgery, and I wanted to highlight here, this is similar to like the lower body joint moves, just a different move here. These are pretty much like full-on sprints. It's just we have his affected arm like in a spot where it's going to be absolutely good. And I want to highlight that because, again, we want to start asking everything outside of his shoulder, specifically in this case, or whatever injury it is that someone has. We want to start asking everything else to output at high levels so that we don't like fall off and lose those, right? And so this is just an example of how we can safely do that, where it's a simple, I think it's like a time sprint or something, maybe 1 or 2 seconds. Just like, hey, make sure that you put that arm over your chest in an area where you know it's going to be good to go, and then we're going to attack these. So that's like, reason for that is we don't want to just completely back off anything and not do anything intense for a month or two. Because then, like, if you're fully healthy and you just go lay in bed for a month, your body's going to feel worse, your body's going to be worse, your body's going to be weaker. So why we want to do that and in a rehab when we're trying to build that back up? We just want to do it intelligently with things that aren't going to negatively affect what we're doing. Next video is 12 days later, 5/22, which would be here. So this is overhead tricep impulse. Then we see that he's holding a little bit of weight. These were rapid reps, so ask him to hold a little bit of weight, move as fast as you can, kind of like rebound in and out of those positions. So again, I can get a visual on, he has full range back, he's comfortable in that full range. This is an impulse. Now what we want to do is we want to start to ask you to move that with a little bit more intensity and with a little bit more speed. Like, so it's basically full range, and then we start to add load, we start to add impulse, we start to add speed, right? And this is kind of that, a little bit past where we started doing that, but this is a good, it helps to give me a visual on like how much confidence does he have in that range. Even though he has full range, how much confidence does he have in it? And we want to start building that, right? So again, it's just information for me that I'm taking in. So that was on 5/22. Again, his surgery date was 4/19, so that's what, like a month and 3 days post-op. 5 anchors for a labrum surgery. 5/29, this is a week after, and so this would be, what, about 6 weeks post 6 weeks post-op, and we had him in layback with overcoming iso with the rope here. So here he's simply trying to pull into that rope in that deep layback position, and it's just like get into whatever position you feel comfortable with, and this is the position that he ended up being able to get into. So again, not all labrum guys are going to, or not again, but not all labrum guys are going to return their external rotation this quickly, and that's absolutely fine. What I wanted to highlight here is like that, and that's exactly what I mean. I'm not looking at a piece of paper and being like, you can't do this at 6 weeks. I'm looking at your body, and your body is telling us how we're going to progress versus this piece of paper. Because this piece of paper is based on the body anyways, but it's over a large group of people. If I'm working with someone one-on-one, I'm going to go off the body because that's what those papers are based off of anyways, right? So this is what he's able to do at about 6 weeks post. And then we have June 13th, and so this would be just under 2 months post-op. We have I remember him being very excited about this. So we had incline bench. He was doing 135. I think he hit like 6 to 8 reps for that. So we were starting to get into a little bit of the strength stuff, and you can see in my notes here. Let's see. We started doing like full-on programming first week was like July 3rd. Well, let me go to, this is 6/24, so this is a little bit before we start doing full-on programming, but this was like 6/24, so this was 2 weeks roughly after the previous video, and we had this is like, we're looking at loading a little bit of the external rotation, range of motion, be able to pull back as deep as you can so that you can load that horizontal abduction. Then we have him doing some elbow valgus impulse. And again, I'm looking at these, I'm like, okay, he's getting pretty damn close to being able to just like go all in on everything it is that we're doing. And that's the feedback that he's giving me as well. So those were on 6/24. And then what I want to talk about is 7/3 or July 3rd, which was 4 to 5 to 6, 2.5 months post-op. We have his programming, which was here. So this is what I mean by like the difference between full-on programming and non-full-on programming. And I want to talk about this as it relates to when we started return to throw, because that's what's going to come next, right? So this was June 27th, the week of June 27th. And so you can see like when I program these days, these are his lower body days, and those are pretty much full on or full go. These are this day and this day were upper body days that were modified. And so when I'm making modifications to the program, it means like if I have someone that's fully healthy, I'm not going to give him that programming necessarily yet, right? I'm still making modifications based on how he's like based on how his body is presenting. We're still kind of like in rehab at that point. And then this is the next week, which is 7/3. And this is the first week that I start introducing like, okay, we're going to do, if I had an athlete that's completely healthy, this is what we're going to do for programming. And so 7/3 is the first day that I started to introduce that, making small modifications where it's like, you know, instead of going super heavy, you might go higher reps with lighter weight, or just making sure to like put in there only go in the range that you feel good with, start off slow, progress as you're ready, etc. But that's the first week that I started doing that, and then I want to highlight that because then on 7/31 or July 31st is the first day that he actually started throwing. So 7/3 is the first week of full-on programming. 7/31 was his first day of actual throwing. And the reason I want to say that is because usually we want to go 2 to 3 weeks where, like my goal in the rehab, before you get into your return to play or return to throw or return to sport or whatever it is, the goal of rehab is to be able to take and throw everything at you that we could throw at you and you're absolutely good with it. So like on 7/3 was his first week of full-on programming. 7/8, this was like 5 days into it. This is what like his bench looked like. Right, so he's doing rebound reps, absolutely no problem there. And then this is what his layback looked like. So he's doing pulses and layback there. That's 5 days after we started full-on programming, full-on normal quote-unquote programming. So what I want to do, going back to this timeline, is like I want to be able to have 2 to 3 weeks where we're doing that full-on programming, no issues presented, ready to go, body feels ready to go, and then we think about the return to throw on 7/31 instead of being like, okay, you're at 4 months or you're at 3 months or whatever it is, you're supposed to start throwing, now let's start throwing even though your body's presented is ready for that in training, right? That's not what I'm looking to do. I'm looking to actually follow what the body's saying it's ready, and we want to have 2 to 3 weeks or 1 to 2 weeks of really good training progression and in the full-on programming before we start that return to play. And then last piece is, so 7/31 was the first day of throwing. That was roughly 3.5 months post-op, which was here. So again, this was, he's doing his throwing through DAC, throwing through cast, and this was his first day of tossing the football around on that, on 7/31. And then this was, I believe this was August, let me double check. August 28th, so a week ago at this point of where the video is being made right now, August 28th, these were some baseball throws that he had. Right here. So he's starting to work up with that. So hopefully that gives you some backdrop on whatever your speed of progression is. It is not based off of sheet of paper that I'm looking at is based off of what your body presents. And there's the important piece that I wanted to talk about is like, you can both get in the way of things going as smoothly as they could by thinking that you have to go slower, or you can get in the way of things going as smoothly as they could by thinking that you have to go faster, right? And so we're not trying to do either of those. We're not trying to artificially speed it up, or we're not trying to artificially slow it down. What we want to do is use your body, use the sensation, use the feedback that you're getting intelligently as a mechanism to determine how quickly we progress, because you are connected to that new part that you have. And so that's what I want to show with this example, and hopefully that gives you a good idea of like, even when things are going smoothly or quickly, it doesn't mean that we're artificially pushing it faster than it needs to go. All it means is like, this is what your body is presenting as being ready to do, so we're going to follow that.